Good morning, you guys. Good morning, good morning. So, a couple of quick things. We're going to talk this morning a little bit about the the mind. We're going to talk a little bit this morning about our minds, and it's an interesting thing because it's hard to see the mind with the mind, and so the mind is kind of tricky. It tells us that it will do better next time. It will be, it can fix itself. It really does. It's always telling us it can fix itself. And one of I work at Fresh Start Recovery sometimes as a relief worker, and I enjoy it. I really do. And one of the things that came up last night, um, working there with the fellas, is that the common thread that's there with many of us in recovery is this thought that I'm not good enough, that that most of us have. It's like a common thread. I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy in some way, unworthy of love, or unworthy of. So we have this common thread, and in the in our big book, um, it tells us that there's the selfishness and self-centeredness. That's the root of our troubles. It's hard to get this in a way that the thought, I'm not good enough, or this pervasive feeling that seems to be, overriding, colors our world, is actually a selfish and self-centered thought. We created the thought ourselves, and if you get that, because I mean, almost all of us know, we call it low self-esteem. See, I have low self-esteem, right? Have you ever said that? Have you ever said that? I have low self-esteem. Of course you have. And so what do you do with that? If that's a fact, and it's there, and it creates your reality, um, and but we're living under the delusion that someday we can fix that, you know, and we think we can fix it by, taking a trip, or we think we can fix it by reading books. And I'm here to tell you that not only according to the 12 step world, where it says that we absolutely cannot fix that. It says a beautiful thing. It has a couple of paragraphs on in just before step 3, and I'm just going to read them to you. It says selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Now, how does that show up? Sometimes it shows up in I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I have low self-esteem, and driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, is self-pity. Right? These are all the symptoms of our self-centered living. But we've painted ourselves as a victim, self-pity, and the world has really done me wrong, because I'm not good enough. It's such bullshit. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But it says we invariably find that at some time in the past we made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. You know, and I was just actually talking to a friend that, because we have fear, eh? Driven by 100 forms of fear. That's part of this selfish, self-centered fears. But sometimes we have fear around money, and so we're so afraid around money that sometimes we'll take the lowest bidder on a job. We'll say, oh, because we have money fears, we're afraid, and we'll take the lowest bidder, and then often the lowest bidder costs us way more, right? Costs us way more. So I'm just sharing that with you. That fear is part of the problem, right? So our troubles, you think, and this is the second paragraph I'm going to read to you, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And the alcoholic, but not just the alcoholic, this is for everybody. You don't have to be an addict or an alcoholic to relate to that. We're some of us in our 40s or 50s or 60s still running around with low self-esteem, or not good enough. So we haven't been able to change it, have we? You know, unworthy of love. I can't, but we paint it differently. We say, well, I just can't find the right man, or I can't find the right gal, so I'm just going to live alone. You know, and all of those things. But here's the deal: it rise out of herself. The alcoholic is the extreme example of self-will run riot, though he or she doesn't usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics, and not just alcoholics, but the rest of the world, must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. So when we're self-centered, when our thinking is what about me, and basically it we our life collapses, you know, and we go to a therapist and he tells us, well, you know, they try to help, but they really can't. And this goes on to say that right now. We must or it kills us. God makes that possible. There often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we'd like to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by trying. Um, Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying our own power. We had to have God's help. So that's the crux of this thing that I wanted to talk about this morning. So if you understand the problem, you know, if you're living in that selfish and self-centered way, you know, if you're wondering, you know, what's wrong with me? Why does everything kind of not work out? You know, I used to say I had the Midas touch. Everything I touched turned to shit. And the Midas touch, you know, and because it doesn't matter how I got that, you know, whether it was trauma, whether my mother put me on the toilet backwards when I was 5, it doesn't matter how that happened. The fact is that I grew up with this idea that I wasn't good enough, and I couldn't change it on my own. I did affirmations, and I went to groups, and I read books after books trying to change my thinking, and finally I had to surrender. You know, the recipe was right in front of me all the time, and I just, you know, I just couldn't follow it. You know, it was difficult to say, is that it? You know, my natural state before my conditioning, because what we're talking about is my conditioning. My natural state before my conditioning is in state of love, is a state of oneness, in, you know, in a state of bliss in the moment. And so, but I was never living in my natural state. I was always living in my conditioning. And the conditioning of the mind was so strong that I couldn't change it. And I couldn't wish it away. I couldn't will it away. I couldn't, um, you know, do enough affirmations to move it, you know. And I think that in some times I kind of did overpower it a bit, you know. You know, when I was raising kids, and purpose seemed to be very big at the time. But in the long run, you know, it was there, always waiting for me, and I had to find a way to live in a relationship with a higher power. I had to find something greater than me, a power greater than mine, to live in relationship with, you know, God-centered instead of self-centered. And we get confused here when we talk about God, because for me, when I speak of God, I don't speak of something separate. I'm not talking about some image or some religious idea of God. I'm talking about the idea that Bill talked about in the book, in our book, in the 12-step book, and many teachers have talked about. And Bill said, if God either is or he isn't, either he's everything or he's nothing. So when I look at that concept, I think, my gosh, okay, yes, I get that. If God is everything, then how do I access that everything? And I recognize, you know, from Eckhart Tolle and from Muji and from um, Alan Watts, from, you know, Ram Dass, from all of the teachers, many of the teachers, that I needed to be present. You know, the stillness, the isness, the oneness, the bliss, that, you know, I am that. And that is what I needed to recognize that I already was. I didn't have to find it. I didn't have to grow into it. I just had to let go of all of my beliefs and my conditioning of who I was because it wasn't serving me. So that's my little story today. You know, if you're living in this idea, if I'm not good enough, know that, you know, all of the jobs we have, all of the, the projects that we work on won't lift us out of it. You know, it's our relationship with now. And as we surrender, if thoughts of fear come, we just surrender them. We continually surrender our selfish and self-centered thoughts. We let them go. Self-pity, and just be aware, self-aware. Then we realize that we are not the mind. We are not the conditioning. If we're not the mind and we're not the conditioning, then what are we? We are that. Get it? We are that. So just rest in that. Lay back into that. In their meditation, feel that. It's beyond the story. We're not our story. It's beyond our conditioned beliefs about ourselves or the world. It's beyond complaint. It's beyond judgment. We are that. So, beautiful. Hi, Cami. Hi, Jennifer. So that's it. I mean, I talk to people often. I've been talking to more women have been showing up to talk to me about, why is it that they can't have a relationship? They want to be in a relationship. And let's first work on this relationship with the moment, with isness. And as we, become aware that we are already all that we need, we are already, there's nothing missing, everything is as it needs to be, then we settle into a perfection of the moment. There's no complaint, there's no resistance. And resistance is hard. It's hard on the body. It's hard on, on our, we struggle and we go nuts, right? But the calmness that comes in the moment, practice that. Okay, I'm going to read for a quick minute the 28th of this glorious month of December and see what it says. Sometimes it kind of matches what I'm talking about. We'll see. Boy, we're sure getting to the end of the month, aren't we? We are. Okay, 28th of December. This is from my little book, 24-Hour Day Book, and I just want to share it with you. We've been doing this since early May, the 1st of May, and we're going to keep going, I guess. December 28th, thought for the day. So it says it talks a lot in here because it was written in 1948, published in 1954, but began as as a kind of a loose project that this fella did back in the 40s. So the 12-step program AA was only not even 10 years old when he started writing these. It says AA may be human in its organization, but it's divine in its purpose. The purpose is to point me towards God and the good life. So God, though, remember, is in the moment. However we conceive God, we can't meet him in the past or the future. We can't meet him in our conditioned ideas, right? So let's look at the purpose is to point me towards God and the good life. My feet have been set upon the right path. I feel it in the depths of my being. I'm going in the right direction, moving towards this relationship that happens in the moment. Read The Power of Now again. Eckhart Tolle. He really shares that, this, how do we get there? Same with Dr. David Hawkins in the book Letting Go. It's all focused on letting go of our conditioned beliefs about ourselves, about life. We don't know shit, right? We're coming from a very thin veil of information. But when we drop into this endless supply, this endless power of information we know each moment, we can just let go and be in the flow of life. It's beautiful. The future can be safely left to God or to the moment, right? Whatever the future holds, it cannot be too much for me to bear. That's right. Life won't give us more than we need or want. It's beautiful. I have the divine power with me to carry me through everything that may happen. I am pointed toward God and the good life. So that's a beautiful writing. December 28th. Meditation for the day. Although unseen, the Lord is always near to those who believe in him and trust him and depend on him. So I've always found that it's not so much the belief as the actual depending, the experience, right? And depend on him for the strength to meet the challenges of life, the challenges of the day. Although veiled from mortal sight, the higher power is always available to us whenever we humbly ask for it. Boom. The feeling that God is with us should not depend on any passing mood of ours, but we should try to be always conscious of his power and the love in the background of our lives. Boom. Love it. It's there. It's always there. It's just we need to be present to realize it. Prayer for the day. I pray that today I may feel that God is not too far away to depend on for help. I pray that I may feel confident of his readiness to give me the power that I need, always. So, just 3 more days this year. Wow. Okay, you guys, love you lots. We're going to do a quick meditation, okay? Welcome to join me. And the whole idea why I've been doing these is just to support you and me, but to getting into that space, into that quiet space. And meditation helps us to find that quiet space, right? And so we're going to just sit for a few minutes in that quiet space. And when we're here, one of the key things that I'm focused on is for us to observe the mind. Okay? We're going to just sit for meditation. Yeah, thanks, Cami. You going to join us for a little meditation? Just find a spot to sit. And, mind will say, oh, I'm too busy. I can't do that. Because mind doesn't want you to see it. And eventually mind will quiet down. It's a tool, and it will quiet down when it realizes the gig's up, that you are aware, that you have, found your true power in the moment. It will come along. Mind is a great tool. It just was never meant to run the show. So close your eyes, just find yourself in a comfortable space, and just drop in. Use the breath. Just use the breath to bring yourself into the moment. Now, it doesn't matter if there's any sounds around you, if people are in another room talking, or if there's sirens or airplanes or dogs barking or kids screaming. None of it matters. Just let it be. Include it. Just include it. It's nothing. And just drop in. Watch the mind. Just watch. Just feel yourself in the spot you're sitting in, hopefully supported, your back supported. Just drop into your body. Remember, you're not your body either. Body's a vehicle, right? Just like the mind. In the moment, it's only a tool. And as thoughts come up, we just surrender them. Don't push them away. Don't try to defend ourselves against them. Fear comes up, just allow it, just accept it, and then surrender. Surrender the stories. Surrender the short stories. Surrender the thoughts, all thoughts, to the Father of Light, to the moment. Just remember, you're not your mind. You're not your thoughts. You're watching your thoughts. You're the observer of the thoughts. And you're the observer of the observer. Nowhere to go. No one to be. Okay. To come back now. Thank you. Just a quick time together. So for those of us that are, recognize themselves as in recovery from addiction, we know that what a struggle we had with whatever the substance was. And we know that when we started using, we were really gone. You know, we didn't know when we were going to stop or how long it was going to go on. But recognize it's the same with the thoughts. You know, the ideas of who we think we are skewed by selfishness and self-centeredness. And the only way out is begins with step 3. Begins with building this relationship into the now. And when you read the promises, you see, you know, what an amazing life we can have living in a conscious relationship with this moment, being aware that we are here now, that nothing's missing, that there's nowhere to go, and that life will lead us. We will be lived by life instead of us trying to manage life. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining today. And we'll see you tomorrow.